Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this Thursday. We've got all the FA Cup games out of the way. I guess a lot of us are thinking about what we're going to do in game week 29 with the blank game week, in 28 with the double game week, and also this week because we're seeing players become doubts. We've got Richarlison not spotted in training. We've got Hwang probably out. We've got doubts around Solanke as well. So I mean, if you're sort of set on the free hit in 29, you're probably, feeling confident. You could probably just move for someone else. If you're not thinking of free hitting in 29, then you have to make some decisions. I think there's some interesting players that we can consider as well. So we're going to talk about some of those. We're going to talk about what my kind of ideas are going ahead. I've got a Scout article coming out probably today or maybe tomorrow morning, which is going to be kind of a lot of what I'm going to cover today, because in writing that I was kind of seeing if I could avoid maybe playing the free hit in 29. I just don't think it's possible to avoid it, to be honest. I think it's almost a certainty, and we'll talk about some of the reasons with that as well. Hi to everyone in the chat. I realise it's a slightly different time. 9 a.m. sort of came and went, and I hadn't really sort of set anything up, so I really wanted to get one of these out. So I pushed it back to the afternoon. I'm also aware that this is actually before Black Box, and Dino Irish says you boys not doing a Black Box this week. We are doing a Black Box this week. It will be tomorrow. We couldn't do it sort of last night because obviously we needed the cup games, although everything went as predicted anyway, so we probably could have done. I think Mark's away tonight, but we'll be around tomorrow. So I'm going to get a couple of beers in. So anyone's watching this, if you fancy joining us, having a toast to the last kind of third of the season, do join us tomorrow, probably around 7:30, 8 o'clock, something like that. In fact, FPL Rank Chaser straight away, got the beers all ready for tomorrow night's Black Box. Will FPL be joining you? Yeah, we will be in FPL mode, and he will also be there too. So yeah, it should be a good one. Who else we got in the chat? We got Niraj, afternoon all. We got Morton, it's 5:04 in Norway, kind of an hour ahead of us in the UK as well. FPL Swat says he's as with a prawn cocktail starter before the filet steak of Black Box tomorrow. I really like prawn cocktail like things. I like prawn cocktail skips, but it's not really the same as like a classy starter. I'm more of like a chicken wing starter. To be honest, but yeah, anyway, that says probably quite a lot about me. Mitchy says Chan will go down as my worst ever transfer. Bought him in twice this season. He blanked 4 times. Even with his blank, I've still made plenty of worse transfers than Hwang over the years. Destiny's -4 will kind of resonate with some people. Billy Southerns in the chat. Hi, Az. Hello, Billy. Hope you're doing well. Hi to Tayyip and hi to Diraj. Too good to see you all. Ollie Sack, Black Box night or tomorrow. It will be tomorrow, as in Friday night. What could you possibly be doing on a Friday night that'll be better than watching us on Black Box? So check that out. Let's take a look at game week 26 then. It's quite nice to be doing this, kind of not having done Black Box, because you kind of feel like you're repeating yourself a little bit when you kind of go over the points. But it was a crappy week. Like, I think we were all kind of a bit disappointed after the double. I think we went in different ways depending on plans for 29. I think some people with the longer term strategy might have got in a Bailey or a Louise or a Bowen. Three perfectly good picks. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't think any of us were expecting a Bowen hat-trick, his first ever career hat-trick, against a Brentford side who, have been quite poor defensively, but aren't really the typical sort of counter-attacking side, sort of anti-counter-attacking side that West Ham kind of like. A team that West Ham would like to counter on. I wouldn't necessarily think of Brentford. That's the word. So I was surprised with that, but they were absolutely shocking. And I think Brentford have got to be a team that we look to target kind of going forward. So if you're looking ahead to game week 29 and you thought, I'm going to bring in Bailey, Louise or Bowen with this run in mind, fair play. Absolutely brilliant transfer. If you've got any of those free players, if you've held on to Bowen for all the blanks and everything, yeah, well done. Amazingly rewarded. I think if you had him, it'd be one of those weeks that kind of lives long in the memory, because a Monday night hat-trick, normally Monday night is the most disappointing night, and people who have Tony, for example, will be going into that thinking, West Ham, surely he's going to get something from this, and he comes with a blank, and you've got to watch Bowen getting the hat-trick. So yeah, fair play. As you can see from my team, I didn't really have any Any joy this week? It's another really poor week for defence. Martinez, conceding 2 goals against Forest. Trippier with a 0, absolutely ridiculous in the hammering they got at Arsenal. Gabriel with the 2, conceding to a bloody Willock goal right at the end. And then a Stupinan, who we thought was going to start. He'd been having pasta with De Zerbi. We'd seen a leak is a stretch. We did something from Luke, who got some information that he was probably going to be starting, who we've now hopefully all blocked. Not Luke, the person who gave him the leak. I was still sceptical he would start, but it seemed a bit unnecessary to take him out. Saka came through, Foden came through, but pretty much everyone's got those. Same with Watkins. Haaland captain was a foul if you went for Saka or Watkins. Again, there's always a chance, isn't there, to kind of. Although it's boring each week, we're saying, we're captaining Haaland each week, we've got all these players. Each week there's still like the chance to go against them and benefit. It's just if you can be brave enough. And I don't think many of us were expecting such a cagey performance from Man City in that match. But yeah, just Nassis Haaland was pretty disappointing. And then Juan, Garnacho and Solanke, all disappointing. I mean, Solanke and Juan were bought in, both for different reasons. Juan with the short-term fixtures in mind, particularly the Sheffield United game. Solanke more for the longer term. But, a hit to bring those 2 in. And I took out Darwin and De Bruyne. De Bruyne played about 10 minutes. Darwin didn't even play. And I'd have been better off not making the bloody transfers. So, yeah, that's when it's really annoying, when you actually do a move and you don't even see kind of immediate payout. The Huang, blank is frustrating. I went on the FPL show earlier in the week, and I kind of said, I think Sheffield United might make it hard for Wolves. This isn't, again, we talk about West Ham looking to counter. I do wonder if teams that are set up in that way might struggle a bit against Sheffield United, because you've got to have your passing's got to be very, very incisive to cut through such a low blocking team. A team who just puts 10 men behind the ball, and they had threat. They were pushing forward when they could, trying to get Brewster on the ball, created Wolves some problems, and they'll be happy to get through that game with a win, because it could very easily have been different. And it was kind of a Sarabia, a great goal from him, and an Aït-Nouri cross. So there's people out there who got Sarabia and Aït-Nouri in, and fair play. I mean, it's a bit frustrating. I don't really want to lament too much about what I didn't do. But going into the FPL show, I said that my moves were going to be Darwin to Højlund and Estupinan to Aït-Nouri. So they were going to be the moves. Obviously, the Højlund injury meant that I couldn't go there, so I went for Solanke instead, who was kind of the next best thing. And then we got the De Bruyne news about him being benched, so I felt like I had to move him on. So, again, we can plan and we can do all these things and actually leap. If I'd actually just carried on with what I was originally going to do, and Aït-Nouri and just played De Bruyne, I'd be better off. So I don't like to look at it like that. You can only do what kind of makes sense with the information that you've got that's available to you. But it is frustrating when you kind of have a plan and it kind of other things kind of mess it up, and then you end up kind of worse off than you did. So yeah, pretty frustrating week. Just 51 points, but with the hit as well. So obviously down to 47. So a red arrow for me. First red arrow in a while. Actually down from kind of 500k where I was starting to really kick on. Back down to 655 in a week where I had 11 players, and I thought, I'd get a decent green arrow. So a little bit disappointing, but hey ho, we carry on and we go on to the next week. Let's take a look at the watch list then. Obviously, I update this every week. The stats are from Fantasy Football Scout. You can't actually filter by non-penalty XGI per 90 on there, so I kind of have to do a bit of a manual conversion, but I kind of like it this way. If you're kind of new to this and wondering what these numbers mean, essentially the XGI is expecting goal involvement in the side, and then if you kind of filter it by 90, that kind of gives a sense of players who are benched more often, or come off the bench, or subbed at 70 minutes or something like that. It gives a kind of a more kind of comprehensive score into how likely they are to get a return in the 90 minutes that they play. Obviously, the higher the number, or the closer that number is to 1, the more likely they are to return. So Haaland's kind of top of all metrics in terms of expected assists, expected goals. His non-penalty XG per 90 comes through as 0.91. The NP obviously stands for non-penalty. So basically, Haaland is close to getting you something or expected to get you something every week, which is about as good as it gets. Really, we occasionally see players kind of going over that. I think we've seen Darwin around 1.1 or something, which means he's kind of almost expected to get you over that 1 return a week. But essentially, this is where it kind of sits. If a player is knocking in around 0.6, I'd say that's pretty good. So, players like Elise, kind of in midfield, looking at a really good pick when he's back and fit and firing. Bailey as well, 0.65. I think that's great for a 5.6 million midfielder. Got to be someone that we're kind of looking at. You look at Louise, for example, 0.32. So he's got the penalties, obviously, but his kind of open play threat is about half of what we typically see from Bailey. But then with Bailey, you get the occasional benches or early subs. You don't get that with anyone else. So kind of looking at this list, kind of who are the players I'm really kind of thinking of moving towards kind of in the next few weeks. Well, my defence needs work, really. I've got Estupinan there, I've got Kabore who's not playing. Either one of those two I could move to someone else. The trouble with defence is it's really hard to know which defenders to kind of target. We're looking at, players like Trippier not really performing. We're looking at players like Porro, great attacking threat. A, hasn't been delivering. B, is now injured, hasn't been spotted in training. We're looking at Reguilon as well. I mean, he was so frustrated in that last game. Could easily have been sort of red carded in that game. 8 Nori, have you kind of missed the boat on that? It's Newcastle next, Newcastle away. Expect Wolves to score in that, but keeping a clean sheet as well. And if you look at his underlying numbers, they're not exactly that amazing at 0.17. So defence is hard. I think, unless you're kind of doubling up on Arsenal, that's kind of 2 of your spots sorted, and then maybe you're moving towards a Spurs defender. I think for 29, a Porro or a Destiny Udogie probably looks quite good, seeing as they play Fulham. As well, you probably want Doty in just because Luton have got that double game week, and then they go into the game in 29 as well. So a couple of options, but as much as my defence needs work, I think that's probably not an area that I'm going to focus on, just because the options kind of aren't as good as in some of the other areas. So midfielders, though, I've got a decision to make this week. I've obviously got Hwang, who O'Neill has said is most likely out of the weekend. I would be surprised if he played against Newcastle. He picked up a knock in the warm up for the game. Played in that game, blanked. Starts in the FA Cup, subbed off at 50 minutes or whatever it was. So I think he's almost certainly going to be a sell. And I think it works out quite well, because I was looking at getting Son anyway. He's got 142 points already this season. You look at his underlying numbers of 0.57. If there are doubts around Richarlison as well, we're almost certainly going to see him moving to that kind of striker spot too. And obviously he's got penalties as well. Next two look great as well. I think Palace, they're supposed to be a new attacking Palace side under the new manager, but they haven't got Guehi, which I think is a big blow. And if he does kind of set them up to come at Spurs, I think they could get picked off a bit with Maddison pulling the strings and Son up top. And then it's Villa, and we've seen Villa against some of these high-line teams, who kind of match their high line as well. And we see lots of goals in those. Newcastle have scored a bucket load against them sort of already this season. Liverpool as well, there's goals in that game too. I don't think it's going to be any different with Spurs and Villa. I think that's two teams that want to attack, that want to play on the front foot, and there's going to be space for the likes of Watkins, for Bailey, for Son. It's a hard game on paper, going to Villa away or playing Spurs, but I think in reality we're going to see lots of goals in that match. So Son looks really good. I mean, Maddison's not far off him over the season. Obviously he had the long spell of injury, so he didn't got half the points, but the underlying numbers at 0.55 are still really good. Already someone in the chat saying, we know you're going to get Madders. That's from Dino Irish. Very tempting. I think Son is if you can afford him, I think Son is the better option. He's 9.6 compared to 7.9. But, with the penalties, if he's playing striker, I think he probably is the one that you're going to want to go to. But I definitely think going into 29, you're going to want at least 2 Spurs attackers. When we're considering, can we get through Gameweek 29 without maybe free hitting? You've got to think, well, who are the most important players that you need to own going into that fixture? So I think obviously you've got Watkins. He's going to be one of the top targets because of what he's been doing this season. I think you need Son because they're playing Fulham away. I think you need Tony because they're playing Burnley away. I think you want to chuck in another Spurs midfielder, maybe Richarlison or Maddison. You could even take a punt maybe on a Kulusevski or go for Werner up top. But definitely I think you want to double up on the Spurs players there, or maybe getting a defender. And then I think you need Bowen as well. I know they're playing Villa, but again, high line. That's the kind of game which I expect Bowen to thrive in. So you've got around 5 players there that I think you kind of need to have. And if you're having to take -8 just to get those 5, and then maybe you've got a sprinkling of other players like I've got, you'd be thinking, okay, well, is it worth playing the free hit in this week? I can get 11 out. I'm pretty much guaranteeing myself a green arrow. And if Son does go off and get 3 goals and Maddison assists, and you 30, 40 points is very feasible for that week over teams that don't use the free hit chip. And if you're coming into a double game week, and maybe in 34 you've got a game week where we don't see all of the top teams playing, or maybe lots of us have got the top players in anyway, because we're wildcarding in 30-31, and Arsenal, Chelsea all get double game weeks, we're going to have those players anyway. So how is a free hit going to help in 34 if we're already loading up on the top players? Do you really want to be saving that free hit for 37 as well? 2 more game weeks left of the season. Things could all be decided by then. We've seen rotation before. It'd be great if Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal are still fighting for things, and and the Champions League spots are still wide open, then fine. But that's not something we've typically seen. And I think leaving such a valuable chip later in the season when you need it, or you might need it in 29, maybe isn't the best strategy. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using it. So this is kind of how I'm moving kind of forward. So in 27, I think it's going to be Hwang to Son this week. I think that's a kind of a sensible move, even if I'm considering playing the free hit in 29. I think Son is a great pick for the next 2. So my team looks all right this week. I think Martinez in goal, Trippier, Gabriel, Estupiñán, Saka, Foden, Son, Palmer, Haaland, Watkins, Solanke. It's Doty on the bench. We've got Nacho and Koura, who doesn't play. I mean, according to Plan FPL, I've got an XP rating of 99%, which is about as high as it gets. So yeah, loving that. I'm not so sure about Estupiñán, let's be honest. He did play in the FA Cup. He wasn't great by all accounts, but did put in a couple of decent deliveries, to kind of get us moving up the pitch. What was interesting is that we finally saw some minutes from our new Argentinian left back, Barco, who came on. He played well. He took some corners as well, and he looks at a kind of prospect. So I'm going from a player who has been a bit maligned, bringing on his kind of replacement who we thought maybe wouldn't see too many minutes, and he plays well. I think there's concerns over that. When I saw Lamptey was injured again, I thought that nails down Estupiñán. This week, I think we could see Barco come in after that. So again, it's another issue with Estupiñán, and I think if you're looking at transfers to be made, even despite the defenders maybe not having so much potential, I think just getting rid of that headache for the next few weeks is a priority. And if I didn't have his injury to Hwang, I think Estupiñán to Saliba would be kind of nailed on. And I'm actually still thinking of doing it even for a -4, because if I don't think Estupiñán plays, I can't see any world in which Sheffield United score against Arsenal. They are not going to get forward in that game whatsoever. So, if we think Estupiñán's going to get 1 point again, do we just bring in Saliba, take those 6 and kind of move on? I mean, I could play Doherty as well. You never know, he could get a cheeky little cross in and a goal, but he hasn't been great lately, and I think Villa are going to score a couple in that. So hits for defenders rarely kind of pay off, but in this case, when it's such an obvious clean sheet for Arsenal, maybe it would be worth it. So yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure. I probably won't do it. I'll probably just play Estupiñán and hope for a or wait to see what De Zerbi says in the presser, see what he says. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know what he does say, because if he talks up Barco at all and kind of compliments him on his performances, I think it's very likely that we see him kind of come in. Yelena says your team is annoyingly good. Well, thank you very much. What's weird is if Nim's listening, I had a look at Nim's team, and our team is literally identical. Like every player is the same, and yeah, I don't know how that's happened. I mean, everyone's teams are quite similar, but we have a very very similar team. I don't know if she's going for Son this week, but hopefully not. Maybe that can differentiate us a little bit. But yeah, I'm quite happy with my team kind of going forward. Having 8 Nori this week, would I even want to play him this week? That was kind of one of the reasons why maybe I didn't do that transfer in the end, because I playing 2 defenders against each other, 2 attacking defenders, I think there's going to be goals in that game. So yeah, there wasn't really a good defensive move that I could have done. 28. We come over to here. So here we're kind of looking at making probably one more move to attack that double game week. I think Neto is probably the obvious player to come in. I've got Martinez, who's at Arsenal, I think. No, not Arsenal. They've got Spurs, sorry. Yeah, Martinez would be playing Spurs, and then Kelleher, who'd be playing City. So neither of those defenders are likely to get a clean sheet. Not too happy with either of those, so I can move one of those for the double game week goalkeeper Neto. Sheffield United and Luton at home. That's a lovely set of fixtures. That would give me Neto, Doty, and Solanke. I don't think we need to be going any harder on that. We could maybe take a bit of a punt on a Barkley, maybe. Maybe Tavernier comes in, but I don't know. I prefer the Barkley move if you're not free hitting in 29 because they have got that game. And it's Forest at home. You could get something in that. So if you're looking for a midfielder for 28, I think Barkley's probably the one that I go for. But when you come to the watch list, like I was just sharing earlier, you can see Barkley right down the list of midfielders that I like the look of. Is right down the bottom, 0.27 for him. So in terms of he's been playing amazingly well, but in terms of really getting those kind of goal involvements, maybe not quite there, but then does have the double game week to do it. And the fixtures aren't too bad. Palace and Bournemouth away. I don't mind either of those. So Barkley's probably the slightly more left field pick out of those. Captaincy, I mean, we'd be doing a team section before that, but captaincy that week I think is kind of fairly tricky if you don't go for a Bournemouth player. But if you're going for Solanke, then surely that's the way to go. I don't think you need to be too different. Assuming he's fit, you go for him. If Solanke isn't fit for whatever reason, and I think he will be, I think it's probably just an excuse to rest him in the cup. But if he's not in the team, it's a very, very interesting week for captaincy, because do you put it on Neto in goal or Barkley or someone? The Man City game and Liverpool is a difficult one to predict. Do you maybe go for Saka at home to Brentford with a single fixture? Do you maybe back the goals in that Spurs Villa game as well? Or do you go for Palmer at home, against, the worst defence in the league? So Solanke is such an obvious option, but if he suddenly isn't an option for us, then it could be quite an interesting week for the captaincy. But my assumption will be that he's fine. And then we come over to 29, and this is where it's, as much as I appreciate, I was saying that my team looks annoyingly good, in 29 it does not, because all I have is Martinez, Doty, Watkins and Son going into the game week. So, like I said, if I want to be adding Maddison, Bowen, and Tony, we're looking at -8 that week, and that is a -8 to get me the minimum players that I'd want to be going into that game week. I'd almost be guaranteeing myself a red arrow with a -8 going into that week. I think, and if any of the other players do, come through, because I could go for Douglas Luiz, I could go for Gibbs White, I could back Forest in that game, I could get a Spurs defender in. If there are points to be had, and I'm sort of handicapping myself, that free hit has got to come through in 34 or 37 by 20, 30, 40 points, and I'm just not convinced that it will. So I just think in my position, take the 20, 30 points that free hit is almost certainly going to give me on this team and just run with it. So almost certainly going to be a free hit for me in 29. Let me know what you're all thinking. It'd be interesting to know kind of what you are doing. In fact, I might actually just put a little poll up if I can remember how to do that. And let's see kind of what people are thinking. Let me just write that. Start a poll. Free hit 29. Yes. No. Got an undecided as well. Just, there you go. Vote in the poll. Let's see what everyone's thinking in terms of that. Cool. Yeah. So not really much point in showing this one. I already kind of talked around my team this week. Like I said, Hwang to Son is the move. We've got a few minutes left. Got about 5 minutes. I will take some questions. I think just looking at the poll results already, 61% saying yes to the free hit in 29. So clearly going to be a popular move. BB Defender says, I'm glad there's lots of blanks in 29. Means there's going to be lots more doubles later on. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, Arsenal, Chelsea, for example, them having doubles will mean Palmer looks a great option. We can obviously go for the double Arsenal. We can have Saka in. Maybe people are going to be taking punts on Odegaard. Maybe people are going to be taking punts on, I don't know, like Chilwell maybe for Chelsea as well. Hoyland will come back. He'll have a double. Yeah, don't get me wrong. There are definitely points to be had, but don't forget, majority of us have the wild card to play, so we can kind of attack a lot of these fixtures anyway as we go. I saw a question earlier saying about kind of me not having the bench boost and what's my plan with that. Iva Khan says, when are you thinking of using your wild card with not having the bench boost? Genuine question, not trying to mock you. Thanks for the clarification there. I'll kind of see how it goes. I mean, I think, if with Liverpool, with Salah, if I want to go for, Salah, Haaland and Son, for example, I think a lot of people aren't going to be able to do that because they're going to have to be putting some money into their defence to try and make the most or maximise the use of that bench boost chip. The bench boost chip, you're looking at two defenders, a goalkeeper, and then a midfielder. I think the bench boost, annoyingly for me, the fact that we do have kind of 5.5-ish million options that are decent assets means that I think people might get some joy from their bench boost this time out. Aston Villa won't have the double because they've got the game, so that rules out Bailey and Louise maybe for that 5.5. But like an Adingra, for example, at 5 million, who's going to have a double a bit later on, he could be a really good pick on the bench boost. It means you haven't got to spend a huge amount of money. So if you get your 4.5s right, and you have a Adingra, and you get a couple of goals, I think 20-25 points is pretty feasible. I got 18, I think, from mine, and I'm pretty happy with that. But I'm looking at leagues, and it all feels a bit kind of I don't know what the word is. It kind of feels a bit like I'm in the wrong position because I'm trying to make up 30 points on people, but realistically a bench boost is going to get a minimum of 10, 15. So really I'm 45 points. So I've got to start getting things right. And, when I go for Haaland over Saka when I'm debating it, or if I don't go for Ain't Nori and that's 10 points, earlier in the season, it's like, okay, I've got loads of time to make these up. But if I'm not picking when I am bold to go against things, and trying to get points from that is going to be really important kind of going forward. And even this week, looking at Haaland captaincy, I know he's obviously going to be really popular against Manchester United. Is Saka the better option against Sheffield United? It's very hard to back against Haaland, given he's just scored 5 goals and Man U don't really have a defence. But Sheffield United could completely fall apart in that game. Look at them, how they've been playing at home lately. So yeah, tricky. So I think that's kind of answers Melv's question. Any advice for rank chasing? Yeah, you just need to be mindful that it can always get worse in the most kind of pessimistic way, and choose your kind of battles carefully. I think captaincy is definitely one where you might need to start risking it a little bit more to try and get ahead. But don't ignore the obvious players like Solanke, Saka. Don't feel like you need to sell them just because they're high ownership. Try and move the rest of your squad around. Going for like a double Spurs mid, for example, like getting Maddison and Son in early, banking on them scoring points over the next two, and then having the game in 29. That's kind of what you want to be looking at, things like that. Ashfield Juice, hi Az, love you too, mate. Enjoyed your stream the other night. Enjoyed you telling Tom off as well. That was probably a highlight for me. Did it Irish off topic, but do you like the Brighton Europa draw? You guys have come a long way. Have it here. Love seeing our teams do it big in Europe. Absolutely, it's going to be great. We've got Roma, haven't we? I don't give us much chance, if I'm being completely honest. We're just absolutely ravaged by injuries, and there's so much rotation going on in the squad. And when you see players like Estupiñán being dropped, and now we're relying maybe on Barco and Lamptey to play in that position, and players like Baleba haven't really stepped up, and we've got so many issues in our front line now. Matoma's out for the season, Pedro's out for a while. I don't know. It's quite a stressful period, I think. But like you say, it is a very exciting period because we wouldn't have expected to be in Europe when we came up a few years ago, and what's been happening to Brighton over the years is nothing short of incredible. So I won't take that for granted, but I think an early exit is probably quite likely, as much as I wouldn't like to see it. Big Fish, when you're on with Mark, we're on tomorrow, my friend. Tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Roughly. Diaz says this 29 gives vibes from 2021. Lingard blank when it was free hit versus non-free hit as well. Yeah, I remember a few years ago there was a blank game week, and I took a -8, and I think I only had like 7 players. I think it might have even been before free hits were even a thing. I bought in Van Aanholt, Cenk Toussaint of Everton, and someone else. And they all got double digits. And I've never had a week like it. And I remember I had like 6 players and I was like, I took a -8. I was like, there's absolutely no way I'm going to get anything good here. And they all just came in. Unbelievable. I think might be Milivojevic. I think it was Milivojevic, Van Aanholt, and Senktusen who I bought in. So yeah, that was a good week. But I think that was blind luck. You can't necessarily rely on that kind of every time. Let's take a couple more questions. This one is from Aishvara. Hey Az, have 2 free transfers. Would you do Nunes, KDB, Garnacho to Morris, Son and Bowen for a -4, or keep KDB? Do Nunes, Garnacho, Stupinan to Morris, Son and 3.9 defender. I definitely wouldn't be selling KDB this week. I mean, he doesn't play for 2 weeks. Comes off the bench, looks absolutely knackered, and then he plays 90 minutes in the FA Cup and looks absolutely superb. I would be amazed if he didn't start the Man City derby. So obviously you can wait for kind of team news, but I would not be selling KDB ahead of that. I know you want Son, but I would probably do it. Nunes, Garnacho and Stupinan to Morris, Son and a 3.9 defender. Yeah, Morris is an interesting one. I mean, how long is Adebayo for? You kind of need to monitor that. But if he's out for a while, then Morris looks a good pick. So he'll be on pens too. So I'm not too sure about Morris and the 3.9, but I would be keeping KDB if I could. Ash says 250 watching, only 44 likes. Yeah, come on, give me a like. Would really appreciate it. Poll results as well. 55% of you are thinking of saying you're going to free hit in 29. 17% saying undecided. I said a very weird noise from downstairs. Hope that was Yelena or someone's broken in and just making weird noises. And the final question I'll take is, has favourite snack? Favourite snack? I like a bag of Watsits, not going to lie. It's probably right up there. Or kind of like a chocolate bar. I like orange chocolate. Orange Yorkies are pretty good, but orange 12s maybe a little bit superior. So just orange. Watsits and an orange 12. Who'd have thought about myself? Anyway, there you go. Thanks everyone for joining me. Like I said, Mark and I'll be back tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Sorry, that was me. That was you. Were you impersonating the air fryer? Yeah, I was. Yeah, did the air fryer impression. Oh, love that you're just doing that downstairs on your own. Excellent. Cool. Everyone, have an incredible rest of your day. See you tomorrow on BlackBox. And good luck this game week.